We, the Cybermen, have been told that there was a party here for aliens. Where is Kurt Russell? Alrighty.
Welcome to the 42nd episode of an Unearthly podcast featuring the 10th planet and recording on January 19th, 2014. I am the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt.
Hello.
And Ron Song.
Always a pleasure.
We've got quite a bit of news to go over today of varying directions related to Doctor Who. There's a new ebook called Tales of Trenzalore being released at the 27th of February, which is essentially, this is something that Stephen Moffat seems to like to do, which is just to release an ebook related to a high-profile episode. This one is about, I believe, 4 tales of things that happened while the Doctor was on Trenzalore during that, 500 years or so.
Mm-hmm. I think closer to 800 years, but yeah. However long it was, these are stories that happened in there, which, you know, really is a good idea. I wish the episode they were about had been better.
Or at least included some more of the actual characters that popped up in the story. Would have been nice.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing some characters I would have loved to have seen reappearances of.
On
just that cover alone.
Actually, I'm seeing something that impresses me even more. You know the page you got that from, the Doctor Who News?
Yes.
Had you seen the Returns in 2014 image at the bottom of that page? Or not the bottom, but right near the bottom of that article? Apparently showing Capaldi in his dress costume.
Not see
I've
that.
seen that picture a lot, yeah.
Where is that on the article, did you say?
No,
yeah.
Bill, on the side panel next to the article, down towards the bottom. Doctor Who Returns 2014. And it's a picture of Capaldi and,
I
Clara.
see what you're
Clara,
talking about.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, is that the first image that we...
I think that's his... I think that's what he was wearing when he regenerated.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think that's still the 11th last outfit, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I was hoping it was...
No,
not yet.
that would be
They still haven't shown us that.
What Capaldi was wearing, but that's what Smith was wearing.
Spoilers.
Yeah, I was going to say, had I missed the news article that that his costume had actually been chosen?
Oh,
No,
yeah, that was
not.
the first thing I mentioned.
Okay.
No, we gotta wait until he officially comes up with one. Apparently he's picked it out already.
Yeah. And apparently he had a large degree of the creative input on what that costume would be as well.
So this obviously is not it yet, because that very much looks like the 11th Doctor's last outfit.
Okay.
The only difference is that the bow tie's been removed because the 11th Doctor dropped that at the end of the last episode.
Yeah.
But actually, let's have a look at that cover. Okay, the green person, I can't remember for sure what that's from.
Oh, there's an ice warrior there.
The green mossy person. But yeah, there's an ice warrior, there's an auton, and that snake is the digital update to the snake from the 5th Doctor. I can't remember what it was called.
What is this? I'm apparently missing something.
The cover for Tales of the
Chancellor.
Cover.
Yeah.
The snake, the digital snake. I can't.
I know what you're
to the Mara.
The Mara, is that what possessed Tegan?
Correct.
Yeah, yes it was.
Okay, so yeah, that's the Mara apparently.
So we have
Or
the
another
Mara,
version like it.
an Ice Warrior, an Auton, and what's the guy on the left?
Yeah.
It's,
What's Moss Face? What's Swamp Thing over there?
I know he's from something, but I can't.
Yeah. You butt out. And actually, before I forget... Jeez.
I'm not actually sure. It might be a weed creature from Seeds of Death. Maybe not Seeds of Death. Seeds of Doom. Whichever one was the Tom Baker episode.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's very much 4th Doctor-ish. 4th or late 3rd.
3rd or 4th, but I'm not like I just switched. One of my desktop backgrounds is the 4th Doctor with a ton of his villains and monsters, and it has nothing that looks like it on that image.
Yeah,
so
well,
I think that might actually be a 3rd or at least a lesser
a lesser known 4th. Yeah,
it'd be a lesser known 4th because trust me, it wasn't the greatest episode.
We can't even remember what it is, so yeah, that tells you a lot right there. Muppet just scratching the bottom of the barrel, looking for something extra to throw at us for references.
Or it could have been one of the 4 authors that just happened to want to write about that particular monster.
For some reason, maybe.
Oh, actually, wait. It should say it's a crinoid from the Seeds of Doom in George Mann's story. If you look underneath the list of stories, it says which monsters in each one. And that is the Mara, you're right.
Yeah,
Seeds of Doom is 4th Doctor. I was right. It was that particular episode. Yep.
So it was Seeds of Doom.
Yeah,
and like I said, it looked like either 4th or very late 3rd.
Yeah, like I said, I always get Seeds of Death and Seeds of Doom confused because it's
Seeds
of 2 words starting with D.
See, I would be the one.
I just know one's a 2nd Doctor episode and one's a 4th Doctor episode.
I would be the one to get City of Death and Seeds of Death and whatever else of Death mixed up.
No, I'm pretty good on City of. It processes good. But the fact that both of them start with Seeds of means they're filed right next to each other in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Seeds of the Daleks.
What?
I'm sure we'll get that one day.
No, I don't want Seeds of the Dogs, thanks.
Oh, no, the Dalek can keep its seed, thank you.
Bill, we might have to hurt you if you keep going this direction.
So for those that are just listening, it's Justin Richards' story "Let It Snow" features the Ice Warriors. George Mann's story "An Apple a Day" features the Crinoid from Seeds of Doom. Paul Finch's story "Strangers in the Outland" features the Autons. And Mark Morris's story "The Dreaming" features the Mara from Kinda and Snake Dance.
That makes sense. Since the Mara kind of comes into your head from your dreams.
Ah. Okay, so there is a way for the character to return. I wasn't totally sure on that. Okie doke. And yeah, they used the digital updated one that they recently used on DVD release, I believe.
Oh, what? They redid the graphics for the DVD?
Yep.
I hope that's a turn off, turn on option.
I was just gonna say, I think it
has that option.
I'm pretty sure most of the DVDs these days have the option to turn off the new graphics.
Yeah, because the cheesiness of it, yes, it's very cheesy in its original graphics, but it's part of the original show. It's the way I remember seeing it. So, get off my lawn, give me my old graphics.
I will admit that I would rather go to the old effects for the Mara, but I would like to see updates for other little things.
Am I the only one sitting here wondering if the Friday the 13th 3 DVD has an upgraded Snake as well?
Well, while they're upgrading the Snake, how about they upgrade that iPop?
Occurred to Matt as well.
Because you can see the spring on the iPop near the end of the movie.
Okay. So moving on now.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Doctor Who inspired MMO Worlds in Time is going to cease operation at the end of next month.
Calling it an MMO is a huge birth to the idea of what an MMO is.
No, technically
it's been promoted as an MMO.
It's been promoted as an MMO. Randy, have you actually played it?
Yes, I have. It is an MMO. Calling it an MMORPG.
Oh, that's the thing. They promoted it as though it were an MMORPG.
Yeah, and it was basically an MMO puzzle game.
And I don't really see where the MMO part comes into a single-player puzzle game. It really very seldom ever did.
There was a social chatting area where you could wind up teaming up with other people to solve puzzles.
And when I tried using it, it was always dead.
That's because it was a horrible idea.
Exactly. I think that's not because it wasn't an MMO, it's because it was a bad game.
I tried it shortly after it came out. Those rooms were full, probably with Doctor Who fans, but pretty much everybody that I knew that played it was disappointed in it.
Yeah,
including myself.
Matt and I were discussing this briefly before. I played it once, realized exactly what it was and wasn't, and never came back. That said, if you did ever register for it, you should have a discount code in your email for the Doctor Who shop as a thank you for playing, because you won't be able to play again after next month.
I never spent money.
I don't think I ever spent money either.
I never spent money either, but I still got the email with the discount code.
Really? Should start checking my emails. There's a couple of them I don't check regularly anymore, so I might have to look. Because that would be very nice of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I never spent money on it. If I did, then I made a
You're a bigger fool than we thought you were, Bill.
Yeah. If I did, I made a horrible mistake.
Because it's barely even a Facebook game, to be quite fair
yeah,
with you.
Pretty much.
That was kind of my issue with it, is I'd seen better Facebook games.
Like, for those not familiar with Worlds in Time, I think you can still register for it, but you're no longer allowed to spend money on it. It's essentially something, if I had like a 5 or 6 year old Doctor Who fan, I would probably give them to that to play the puzzles on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, you see, I would have loved to seen a true MMORPG set in the Doctor Who universe.
Oh, you would have to pry me out of that thing, probably.
Yeah, that would suffer the same thing for me that Star Trek Online always threatened for me, is that I would go into it and you would never see me again. Fortunately, after the first run-through of STO, it got pretty boring pretty quick.
Yeah, you're pretty much just waiting for new content whenever it comes out.
Yeah, but if you remembered when I first started playing STO, I was like on it constantly for like a week. I went from 1 to 50. I went from 1 to 50 in like 3 days.
Yeah, I seem to remember when I first met you, you were pretty much always on STO.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much that time period right there, Bill.
Yeah, it was right after I got a new computer and was actually capable of playing it. That was kind of my issue, was my old desktop was a piece of crap from like 2005.
Yeah. Even 2005 looked at that and went, no.
I upgraded it a couple of times, but it needed some serious overhauling to be able to play anything that had come out in the last 5 years. So,
wait,
my mother had
have Auton Romans in here? Since when was that? They must have actually added things.
Probably.
What are you referring to, did you say?
There's a player character model that looks like an Auton Roman. They have a Roman outfit on.
Got you.
But yeah, I had just gotten that laptop for Christmas, so I was just abusing the crap out of it. Anyway,
our next news story is that, well, tomorrow the new DVD of the Moonbase featuring I'm not sure how many animated episodes comes out.
Is that released Europe or domestically tomorrow?
That's a good question. I'd have to.
That is released in Europe tomorrow. and will be released January 22nd in Region 4, which is Australia, New Zealand, South and Central America, and then it'll be released here
February 11th. Oh, a birthday present! How nice!
February 11th is a Tuesday. For those of you not familiar, Tuesday is the usual release date for films and movies and stuff around here, which is why I was raising an eyebrow when you said tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little... Well, not even that. It's just, I'm like, that's a little sudden.
Yeah, the date that I had, I believe Wikipedia literally just states January 20th with no region-specific information. That's where I had gotten my release date.
I wish I could show more than just freeze frames of this, but I don't want to get us in trouble with the BBC
Yeah, it's
again.
like, you really should be able to, but considering what YouTube has been doing lately, and considering that's where we share this podcast, it's probably better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah. Because I really love the music for this clip.
It does look really good, and some of those clips, I'm not sure if they used rotoscoping or what they did to copy over live action,
must use
but
at least
some
a
of them...
little bit of rotoscoping.
Yeah.
Or at least some images, and then just try to do their best to rotoscope it.
Yeah, that or a really good artist.
It is a really good artist. This is the same group that did the 10th Planet one, which I will discuss later in this podcast. Yeah. But the author of this is somebody who is known on the web as Mighty Otaku King. And he was the one that did the Doctor Who anime on YouTube before he got snatched up to do a project. These are his projects.
And we hope to see more DVDs from him, because he's...
My gum, I hope I get to see more DVDs from him.
Yes, I would really like to see him redo all the missing serials.
Next, I think he should do the Daleks Master Plan.
Oh, God, yes.
I think that's the only missing Dalek episode,
or hell,
isn't it?
if he did Marco Polo, I might be able to get more than 2 episodes.
I want Power, Evil, and Dalek's Master Plan.
Oh yes,
that's right, those two.
I would want all of them. And yes, I'm listening to that, and it is the same music, the same Cybermen music that they got redone for Tomb. That da-na-na-na-na. And the thing is, I was humming that while I was making lunch today.
Yeah, if you guys get a chance to check out this clip, especially if you're on the fence about buying the DVD, or even if you just don't care about the DVD and want to see the clip, it looks really good. So I would definitely recommend, it's on YouTube, so just look
it's
it
on
up.
YouTube. It's officially on the
the
BBC.
Cybermen
I would think you should be able to show this, as this was an official release ad.
Yes,
but you gotta also remember, Bill, that YouTube will slap your hands for even putting a trailer in your freaking video.
Bill. Randy, you said Bill.
Was me.
Randy.
Do not confuse us, Matt.
Huh?
Do not confuse Bill and myself, because I will make you pay for that come GeekCon.
I said Randy, and you're the one that
you said Bill.
Us.
You said Bill.
I did?
Randy spoke, and you responded by saying Bill.
Yeah.
I must have been trying to hush you, then just went back to what I was trying to say.
Didn't sound like it.
You hushed us all right, because we were sitting here in shock.
But Randy, I get in trouble for even putting clips too long of a clip of a trailer in a movie review.
Yeah, the thing is, the BBC would probably be okay with it, but YouTube is going psychotic in terms of, like, if you pay for music and play it in your video,
they will try to make sure that you actually own the rights to that music.
They'll put a claim on it, and you'll have to fight them for a month before you get your rights back to that video.
I'm fighting over my rights for my allowed video for review of V is for Villains, and not only did I get the okay directly from the creator of the group, but him and the other members of the band are actually in the end of my review. Hello, people! I got the okay from these people to do this review. Lay off. But no, YouTube's gotta
YouTube
undercut you, and
that we could go on for hours about what YouTube is doing, so let's go on from that.
Yeah.
Better safe than sorry for us.
Yeah. Moving on.
Our next news, this is a small one, but the Scottish accent was a creative decision for the 12th Doctor, although apparently Capaldi was delighted that he could remain Scottish for...
It's not fair, though. Capaldi gets to keep his Scottish accent, and Tennant didn't.
Apparently, I just saw a quote from the original Mirror article, but apparently Davies was concerned about he didn't want it to seem as though he was just going region to region using a whole bunch of different accents for the Doctor, since he had just done a Northern accent.
And then all of a sudden going Scottish on us.
Yeah, and then of course Tennant did get to be Scottish for at least one episode.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was also story related because the 10th Doctor ended up mirroring Rose's accent, I believe.
Yes, he did. It was an estuary accent. Yeah. And it really was, I think, him trying to mimic Rose Tyler, and it was Tennant's accent was brilliant.
Although I have to say, after my third or fourth time watching Day of the Doctor, I do agree with people that his accent kind of degraded over the years from lack of use. It doesn't sound quite as spot on as it used to.
I didn't think it was that bad.
I didn't think it was bad, but like I said, after watching it 3 or 4 times, you could sort of tell it doesn't sound the same way as it did 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Some people apparently had great complaint about that, but they were also people who just hated the special in general. So
yeah, smack them.
Yeah, that's gotta be people nitpicking.
Hello, Internet.
I don't like to see this actor again. He has too many lines on his face now.
Why is the Doctor so old? There's only been 3 Doctors so far. La 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 la.
Speaking of Capaldi, if you want to...
By the way, I did actually have to explain this to somebody who was of the opinion that John Hurt was now the 0th Doctor.
So apparently that person had never watched The Next Doctor or The 11th Hour or Human Nature. What am I missing?
No,
or Nightmare in Silver.
He completely misunderstood the whole concept of it and thought that his character actually preceded the entire original 26 series classic run.
Oh, they thought that it was the pre-Hartnell Doctor.
Yes. I'm like, no.
That was a rumor before the special aired.
Mm-hmm. But
so I guess that person hadn't seen Night.
That person also, he hadn't seen Night, and they hadn't seen any of the original classic episodes. So they thought that the whole loss of Gallifrey thing was a theme throughout the original 26 seasons. And I had to basically spend about an hour sitting them down and explaining all this.
Yeah, the second and third Doctor eras would have been, and fourth would have been very different if Gallifrey had already been lost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe not the second so much, but definitely the third, fourth, even the fifth and sixth.
The end of the second would have been different.
The end of the second, half of the sixth Doctor's run would have been very different.
Yeah, a season's worth. Not to mention his run-in with the Master and the Rani wouldn't.
I've got to say that necessarily would not have been a bad thing if Trial of the Time Lord had been completely changed by that. But still,
I would say that about the second half. The first the first couple parts of Trial isn't bad.
Especially when you don't realize it's a trial yet.
Yeah, well, no, you know it's a trial from the beginning.
They tell you it's a trial from the beginning. My issue, even just the fact that they keep cutting back and forth between these stories, so you can't really, it's hard to get invested in either of them because it's hard to tell even what's going on in a straight line.
I don't really have that problem. I didn't have that problem with either of the Perry episodes, but the once you got into Mel and the Vervoids, I was just like, okay, care less now.
Trying to be funny, you're not funny.
The way you word that almost sounds like Mel and the Vervoids are a team or a band or something.
Wouldn't that be a hell of a name of a band?
It's Mel and the Vervoids now. Yeah. I don't even want to go there any further.
What I was going to say, though, is speaking of Peter Capaldi, which we've now digressed from, the show that he was filming when he found out he was the Doctor starts airing tonight, at least in Britain, I'm assuming. I don't necessarily know American. It's called The Musketeers, and he plays the villain in 3 of the 10 episodes, if IMDb is to be believed.
Yeah, he's playing Cardinal Richelieu in that particular production. I take it you know Cardinal Richelieu from the Three Musketeers?
I read that book once, like 15 years ago. I remember nothing about it.
He basically is a Catholic cardinal that basically wants to subvert the power of the French throne, so that England can take it over. I believe England is who he's working for.
So I imagine he will have an English accent in that show.
I don't know. He should have a French accent, but then again, everybody's speaking French. He is French. Richelieu is a French name.
Okay. Oh, so he's a Frenchman in
cahoots with the British. Yes. So I don't think his accent will have any bearing. Unless he maintains his native Scottish accent, which is going to sound very odd.
BBC America would be the right place to find the American air date, wouldn't it?
If they have it, yeah.
Well, it's a co-production with BBC One and BBC America, so they should be showing it, but nobody seems
stopping the Musketeers. Why? Mind your own business. Oh, I've diverged into Monty Python.
Yeah, it's probably just airing on BBC at the moment. If it is on BBC America, I hadn't heard anything about it.
It's a co-production between the 2 of them, so I imagine
it might be live if it's a co-production.
Yeah, but I'm only seeing BBC One dates. That's why I'm trying to find it on BBC America's website.
When does it start?
I believe tonight on BBC One, or today. I didn't look at what time it was, or if I did, I forgot.
640, Planet Earth, Atlantis, Top Gear, The Real Sherlock Holmes. It is not airing today.
Everything I've seen said the 19th.
Well, no, this is the BBC America schedule.
Oh, you're saying it's not airing today on BBC America?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Doctor Who. What's it called? The Musketeers?
The Musketeers,
The Musketeers, yeah.
Thursday. I am not seeing it at all on their schedule.
Like, it definitely exists on their website, but I'm not seeing a date on it.
Eh.
Coming in 2014. Okay, that narrows it down.
Coming in 2014.
Oh, coming spring. It's coming in spring on BBC America, so it's probably going to be done on BBC One by the time it comes in America. So
probably.
Yeah, so there's probably going to be about a 6-week delay.
Yeah.
And the reason that we get Doctor Who right away is the fact that the BBC is well aware that the American fan base will freaking download it and watch it.
Which is the exact same thing the American Sherlock fan base did, because apparently Sherlock was finished in Britain before airing in America as well.
Yeah, but they weren't aware of that one. If a show becomes really popular, that will happen, and that might eventually push for a lot more BBC One, BBC America simulcasts. Not true simulcasts, but like the 6-hour delay ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6-hour delay I have no issue with.
Yeah.
If you're going to delay it by weeks, you're pretty much shooting yourself in the foot. And then they're going to be like, oh, why is nobody watching things on BBC America?
Because you take too long.
I know Australia has this problem because they refuse to let anything air prior to its launch date in the UK. Australia has to wait a week for new Doctor Who.
Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. But I heard, from what I heard from Australians, there were a lot of things delayed by weeks or months, not just 1 week, but
Doctor Who gets a 1 week delay. I know this. I know this. It's been going on for a couple of years now. I talked to my my friend who lives out in out by Melbourne.
When did the U.S. start getting it the same week?
2010, 2011, okay. Somewhere in there.
Something like that, yeah.
It was not until the Matt Smith era.
Right. Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, that's when the American fan base started to really snowball.
Yeah, well, that was also when BBC America got clamped down as the exclusive Doctor Who and started co-producing.
Yeah.
Before that, Doctor Who had been on Sci-Fi Channel, or Syfy, whatever you want to call it. The Syphilis Channel, whatever. And there was about a 3-month delay between broadcast and air. Or between UK broadcast.
And then they wondered why no one was watching.
Which is what we're getting with the Musketeers.
And again, you know, this is also the fact that they could be looking at this and going, this isn't going to do well. This is also, I think, a mini-series.
It's 10 episodes, so it's basically the same length as a Doctor Who season.
Yes, but I don't. What I'm talking about is that I don't think it really has any plans to be continued beyond those 10 episodes.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, it might not, yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Or if they do, they'd go into one of the other Musketeer books, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know after this, Capaldi's going to be busy.
Yeah. But then again, if he's doing 3 episodes a year, he probably would have time to do that anyway.
True.
He won't be able to do probably a full 10 episode season.
Now, I would find it funnier than hell if they ever did an episode where they go back to Musketeer era France and he gets mistaken for Cardinal Richelieu as an in-joke.
That would
find that amusing as hell.
That would happen if Moffat was one of the writers on the Musketeers, but hopefully he's not. He has enough shows to work on.
Yeah. Really.
Although who knows? Maybe Gaddis is. Let me pull it up on IMDb.
Please don't.
I
don't want
Created by Adrian Hodges.
Never heard of him.
Gaddis does not appear on the writing. Neither does any other name that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
So, no Doctor Who crossover.
No.
Moving on.
Moving on, we have this article about the 12th Doctor that can be largely open to interpretation. Is that open on the stream yet?
Yep.
Can't. Okay. I'm getting a severe delay on my side. But let's see the exact. The new Doctor is supposed to be madder and less reliable. Also quoted was less of your boyfriend than the 2 most recent Doctors, or even 3 most recent, because Eccleston was, well,
kind of, sort of.
Kind of her boyfriend, but neither one of them were entirely exclusive at the time.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
It wasn't the healthiest of relationships.
No.
Right. But apparently they were both fantastic.
And so, what is the difference in
the translation of what Moffat's saying?
Yes, I believe you two had a difference of opinion.
I believe the words "matter" and "less reliable" screams Colin Baker to me, which could be a bad thing because we don't need a repeat of some of those episodes. Please,
when I think of a Doctor that is mad and unreliable, I think of the eccentricities of the 4th Doctor, especially as a contrast to the Doctors we've had recently.
Yeah, I'm actually with Bill on this one, Matt.
We're also talking about Moffat here. It really sounds like it's going to be a Colin Baker.
It does also use the word fiercer, which does lend some credence to Matt's idea. It says the exact quote is, "We're going to give Clara a Doctor who is much older, fiercer, madder, less reliable doctor who leads her a merry dance. I don't think that's an exact quote because that's terrible grammar if it is, but I'm going to assume they just left a word or two out there.
I don't know. It's possible. It's in quotation marks as a quote. But yeah, I'm actually with Bill on this one. I think when they mean by madder, they mean more like madcap than angry.
I'll hold judgment until I see it, but
it's also what they're aiming for, not what they're going to deliver.
Right.
Everything is questionable based on, our opinion of Stephen Moffat as a writer.
There's also the fact that we know, there was a good consensus on how to write the 11th Doctor's dialogue in the past couple of years, but other than that, we've seen that there's been pretty much a lack of consistent editing from episode to episode.
Not to mention
sometimes within the same
continuity.
Episode. Yeah.
So the main point that they've been driving home for the past few interviews that we've seen is pretty much that this Doctor is not going to have the same personality as the 11th, which is definitely a good thing. What it actually means is really questionable until it actually comes up. We have seen in the past that the Doctor tends to, lose his sense of direction in the TARDIS once he regenerates, and that his relationships with people sometimes change, so we'll see what that actually translates to on screen come the fall.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still worried that because we're dealing with Moffat still, it's going to be a Colin Baker.
To be honest, there was nothing wrong with Colin Baker.
There's nothing wrong with Colin Baker himself, no. The problem was that they wrote him really badly.
Yeah, like I said, there's nothing wrong with Colin Baker that taking out John Nathan Turner wouldn't have fixed.
And there's nothing wrong with Doctor Who right now that taking out Moffat wouldn't fix.
Maybe depends. If he's replaced by Gaddis, I'm not sure.
Maybe Michael Grade as well.
Yeah, that's true. Colin Baker did have issues with Michael Grade. Mostly due to the fact that Michael Grade was stooping his ex-wife.
Doesn't matter. He's got a better current wife.
One that knows to sneak out of the room when Colin pulls out the Doctor Who DVDs.
Don't try to get out of the door. I've already locked it. Did you hide the package?
I wonder if he's nearly as much of a troll at home as he is in public.
I don't know. I think it's just his personality. He has kind of the Shat personality.
Yeah.
I think he really likes to play off the troll because that's what we are used to in his character. And he doesn't mind throwing it out there once in a while when it's all in good fun.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. William Shatner has two personalities. He has William Shatner, as he is around the house, and he has the Shat, which is the hammy, overacting, Heck, he's more of a parody of himself than anybody else has ever been.
I don't think he puts a comma between each word anymore.
Only when he's in the Shat. I actually happen to know somebody who played paintball with William Shatner.
If you're like in an altercation with William Shatner, does the fight music from the original series start playing in the background?
Well, that's what this guy did. Is they were getting down to the last few, and he started doing the music. He's like, "No, you're not Spock."
You're paintballing him. Why is the paintball ripping off his shirt? Because it's Shat.
But no, I'm pretty sure Colin Baker has the same kind of thing. He has his home persona, And then he has his Colin Baker Sixth Doctor persona.
Pretty much.
Where, unlike Tom Baker, who basically has...
Is Tom Baker always.
Yeah.
Even when the Doctor. Oh, hello there.
But no, so we don't know what they're really going to mean, and if they can deliver what they are meaning. We're not going to know that for a while.
If they try to write him like they wrote Colin Baker, I'm pretty sure that Capaldi himself would have a few choice words to say. Apparently, he has had some sort of clash about scripts already. So, and we know that he's an acclaimed writer. So
yeah. So what'll happen is they'll have an argument, and Capaldi's just going to bean Moffat over the head with his Oscar.
Oscar, bitch.
This can only be a good thing. Mind you, the greatest moments of the Tom Baker era was made with Tom Baker essentially working as showrunner. Not officially, but technically.
Unofficially. Helping with the technicals.
But he was the one that was sitting there. It's like, wouldn't this line be better if I said this instead of this?
Or as
and he would make all these changes. Yes.
He's also the one that believed in following what the children wanted out of the show the most, which led to more episodes of K9 and Daleks.
He also shed tears for his bacon sandwich.
Yes. But
so
it was
he made sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
His witty lines and patter were largely Tom Baker's creation. And when we saw John Nathan Turner take over, we saw a large chunk of that disappear. And we saw Tom Baker getting increasingly fed up with the lines. John Nathan Turner foisted Adric on him, which he didn't appreciate. He was a professional to Adric on camera, but apparently was a right bastard to Matthew Waterhouse off camera. Of course, this was also the same time that his relationship with Lalla Ward was hitting a little bit of rocky issues too. So
because the both of them were professional actors and were still doing their acting and hardly had time for each other.
Yeah, but well, no, that was why they got divorced. This was just a bump in the relationship. But still, it was, it was a trying time, and this is going to be, I think, another clash of wills between Capaldi and Moffat. And hopefully Capaldi win, and Moffat will go crawl off.
Except I don't think it's as... I think it's friendlier than Baker and Turner were.
Give it time.
Give it time. Yeah, especially if Moffat keeps coming up with really bad ideas and Capaldi keeps hitting him over the head with continuity. Moffat, continuity is not your enemy. It is your friend. Stop trying to kill it.
That was another thing. Matt Smith was not a Doctor Who fan before being the Doctor. He didn't know enough about the show that he could make those kind of calls.
Whereas Capaldi, on the other hand...
Whereas Tennant and Capaldi both knew the show very well.
Yeah.
And knew what it was supposed to be and what it was capable of. And so is able to say, no, you're full of it.
Oh, that's a terrible idea. Why would the monster ever do that? Shut up!
I have a feeling a large amount of the 10th Doctor era was just Tennant and Davies sitting in a room talking about classic Who. Be like, hey, I like that episode. Me too. Let's do something with it.
It might be. I'm wondering if that's where they got the macro from for Gridlock.
Maybe.
Maybe.
It was just like,
nice, it'd be nice to see them.
Did they actually refer to it as the macro in Gridlock?
Yes.
Yes, they did.
They de-evolved.
Yes.
Into dumber, stupider monsters that were also, I believe, much bigger than what they originally were.
I think so.
Yes, I think so.
Because I remember the Macra having a claw barely big enough to hold one person, and in this one, it's a claw big enough to hold a car.
They got larger and stupider. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And our last bit of news is the National Television Awards. There's, well, by the time this goes on to YouTube, probably about 2 days left of voting. There's about 2.5 or so now. We probably should have mentioned this last week, but it did escape us at the time.
We're not perfect.
Yeah,
we do occasionally miss pieces.
We do not see anything.
And we don't live in England, so we don't get all the little notifications on all this.
Right.
We have to dig for it.
Matt Smith was nominated for, what was it, Best Dramatic Performance, I believe, or Best Dramatic Actor. Doctor Who was nominated for the drama category. So if you're interested in these awards, you know, or even if you like voting for things, is voting restricted to England?
Yes, it's the National Television Awards for Great
Britain.
I
was going to say, by looks of the website.
So you've got to be England, Scotland, Wales, and North Ireland.
I didn't even realize right away that it was British because it's a .com, not a .uk.
It is, though. It's the NTA.
I am saying it's British, yeah.
It is the National Television Awards. They Doctor Who did an opening for that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
With the host oversleeping and.
I think you can actually physically vote anyway because I'm capable of voting. It looks like.
Yeah, you can go to the homepage. Vote now in the final round. Start here.
Do you have a link for that, Bill?
It's
nationaltvawards.com.
Yeah, /vote to vote, or there's a link straight from there. But I'm not seeing anything indicating that my vote wouldn't go through, so I think anyone can vote.
Talent show. Skip this category. Serial drama. EastEnders.
Yeah, let's see if we can see what Doctor Who is up against.
Skip this category. Yeah, I'm trying to get there. Comedy. Oh, Big Bang Theory's on here. Sure, I see clips and pieces of it once in a while. Drama. Broadchurch. Downtown Abbey. Call the Midwife, and Doctor Who.
And you know they knew what they were up against because Broadchurch puts this big picture of David Tennant as their
picture,
image for what they're voting for.
Well, I think that's actually the character Broadchurch, so...
Yes,
okay, so he's a star then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he is the main character of that show.
So you have to choose between David Tennant and Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's a real hard...
Yeah, Downton Abbey is one that I haven't watched, but I've heard a lot of people seem to like it.
TV Detective, 6 nominations.
Oh.
2 of them are from Broadchurch, and we got Sherlock.
Oh. So then we've got David Tennant up against Sherlock. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I've never really seen any of these shows, so I'll skip.
Let's see.
I can't really make a call on this.
Oh, there we go. And drama performance, there's Matt Smith from Doctor Who, Martin Clunes from Doc Martin, Miranda Hart from Call the Midwife, and Maggie Smith from Downton Abbey.
I've only seen one of them.
I've seen a couple of them, but I'm going to go for Matt Smith anyway.
Factual entertainment.
Oh, I gotta go for Top Gear on that.
oh, yep. Just finally scrolled down and saw Top Gear, like, oh.
Daytime. I'm gonna skip this category.
Yep.
I don't watch daytime British television.
No, I don't. Newcomer. Don't know any of these.
Extra and EastEnders. Coronation Street. Oh, they're all from British soaps.
Pretty much.
Serial drama performance. Coronation Street, EastEnders, Coronation Street. Skip this category.
Yep. Documentary. Oh, there's one about
Spy
penguins.
in the Huddle.
What isn't there always one about
I'm going to
penguins?
skip this because I haven't seen any of these.
Yeah.
Entertainment presenter. Oh, God. Graham Norton or Alan Carr? Oh, God.
I think
gotta
I've
have to
only
go for
seen
Graham.
Graham Norton, so...
I'm going to have to go for Graham Norton. Alan Carr is close, but he's a little weirder than Graham Norton. Best entertainment program is the Graham Norton Show.
Why didn't they include Jenna Coleman under newcomers?
I don't know. It looked like it was all votes.
Please enter your details and complete the security puzzle and submit vote. Name, email, confirm your email.
Oh, does it?
No, it's still not a restriction. It's name and email.
Oh, to make sure that one person doesn't vote multiple times.
Yeah. Ticket here to join the... No thanks. And please complete the puzzle below. Complete what puzzle?
It's a CAPTCHA. It's reCAPTCHA. So you basically have two numbers that you got to put in. Or at least mine were numbers.
Yeah, it usually is.
What? I still don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. What is
then
this?
Then you either have an ad block
gotta drop items on the... Okay.
Oh, it's actually a puzzle for you then?
Yes, it's actually a puzzle for me. I had to drop paintbrushes on the...
Oh, I'm seeing it. Okay, I'm looking. It just showed up on... Oh.
I had reCAPTCHA show up.
He has play CAPTCHA.
I use key CAPTCHA for my web stuff.
Please enter your details, complete the security puzzle, and submit vote. Oh, for some reason it didn't work. Apparently they didn't like my...
I have just voted in the British National Television Awards. I feel awesome.
Okay, drag both paintbrushes onto the trophy. Okay, there we go.
So, you just watched the process, so it's pretty simple for anyone out there. If you want to support Doctor Who, if you want to support any of those other shows we mentioned, a lot of Doctor Who fans are Sherlock fans, or David Tennant fans, or
Top Gear fans.
Yeah, or Top Gear fans. So if you want to support any of those
like the Graham Norton Show, too.
Yep.
Yeah, anyone who likes anything the British television that we can get over here in America, by all means vote.
And we just all voted, so that means there's no regional restriction on who can vote as long as the nominees are all British, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Apparently.
That's awesome.
And you watch their shows, so yeah. Woo.
And yeah, it's actually the show itself is live on ITV, January 22nd, 2014. That's 22 January 2014 for those of you in Europe.
So that means you can vote pretty much probably right up until the show starts then.
Yeah, they'll probably right when it starts, they cut it, e-tabulate, and go. The top people have already probably gotten their official invites, so David Tennant should be in attendance.
As well as probably Matt Smith.
Probably, yes.
Yep. He's not filming Doctor Who, he's got nothing else to do.
I would find it funny if they seated them next to each other.
Just see if they actually do the same thing again.
Would they compare screwdrivers again?
No, they would probably just start sitting there and chatting amicably. It'd just be funny to see if they start doing simultaneous movements.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could
discover they're both wearing the same tux.
Do you think they would greet each other with "Hello, Doctor"?
Hello, Doctor. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, Chin. Hello, Sand Shoes.
Do you think David Tennant will be wearing a bow tie?
Probably, because it's a tux. It's a formal award ceremony show.
Sure.
They'll probably be wearing a tie of some sort.
It's probably black or red tie. So, They're probably going to be in a tux. And tuxes have bow ties.
True.
So Matt Smith and David Tennant will both be in bow ties. Will Matt Smith be wearing a fez? That's the question.
And will he be sharing the fez?
All right, shall we move on now?
Yep.
So, yeah, I believe we're done with news then.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the main section of our episode today.
This the episode today is the 10th Planet. So for those not familiar with it, this is the second episode of Season 4 and the final episode of William Hartnell's run as the Doctor. His second...
Yeah, 1966.
Yep, 1966, and the second to last episode to feature William Hartnell in anything other than stock footage.
Yep.
Pretty much.
So who wanted to describe it, or do we want to talk about Regeneration first?
Yeah, I think we should probably cover the topics first.
I thought
Okay.
we should cover the plot summary. I'd think.
Okay, yeah. So who wants to go ahead and do that then?
I think you wanted to, Matt.
I offered to if no one else wanted to. So okay, basic summary then. We actually start off on Earth in the Arctic.
Antarctic.
Yes.
Antarctica. Okay. We are in an actual space station that's apparently put in the Antarctic that helps communicate with all of the astronauts and so forth, and help with coordinates for getting the astronauts off and back onto Earth. And while we're there, they're apparently doing a normal launch. They send up 2 guys in a ship, and they're orbiting Earth, when things start to go a little hectic up there. Around about the same time, the Doctor has landed with Ben and Polly, I believe it was.
Yep.
And they have been they've been now together with the Doctor for about a season, I think.
No, this is their second episode as companions. Their third.
Okay.
I'm sorry, their second serial as companions. Their third serial altogether.
Okay, so this is their third story that they've been a part of, and they've got another more or less season to go yet, even after this. And they have landed on Earth. Ben has actually been wanting to get back to Earth because he's actually a sailor, and he's probably missing from his ship now. They figured out that they're definitely on Earth by the looks of things, and the fact that within minutes of being out, they are found out by a scope from inside the base that's half buried under snow. Men come out. They very quickly and somewhat roughly escort the 3 back into the base, where they finally figure out what's been going on. Ben's kind of confused by the fact that there's a base here, but he still plays up to his sailor routine at least. Not that it really gets him anywhere. Because as soon as he mentions the fact that he's a sailor from the British Navy, they're instantly like, well, why aren't you with your ship? Difficult to answer. But the 3 are quickly put into a back room, essentially, and they wait until later to deal with them until they figure out what's going on with the spaceship. Come to find out that being really weird video feedback, including a new planet that seems to be moving towards the ship. Upon observing this planet, most people keep commenting to the fact that it looks strangely familiar, and before too long, people finally figure out that it's an upside-down version of the Earth. And while some people would argue that it would be a reflection, what would it be a reflection off of, is the question. So it's obviously got to be a real planet, and the fact that it's getting closer and closer to the ship is another little hint towards that. They try to bring the ship back down to Earth, however it keeps getting caught in the gravitational pull of this new planet. The Doctor tries to give a note off to one of the scientists, but is shoved into the back room again before anyone can really read the note. As far as I believe the 2 astronauts crash onto this new planet, Upon reading the note, they figure out that the Doctor knows what's going on and start questioning him about it. He tells them that the planet is called Monbass, and that millions of years ago, or actually no, billions of years ago, it was essentially a twin planet with Earth, and that it was also possessed of humans, and then for whatever reason it managed to escape orbit and went off into deep space. The Cybermen are essentially humans from a sister planet, and I believe about this point, the first ship from Mombas actually lands. The Cybermen take out a few of the soldiers who are trying to get into the TARDIS and make their way into the base. Before too terribly long, they introduce themselves and try to take over.
There is no try.
Do or do not, there is no try. Yeah, they kind of just take over willy-nilly.
Yeah, the second episode is essentially them being held hostage by a Cyberman.
And the Cybermen essentially not giving a care about the two astronauts in the ship, and they're already going, yeah, they are already dead. Unless we save them, and we don't care about them, so they're dead.
Actually, they say pretty much that it is impossible to save them. So they don't bother trying.
I'm pretty sure it's not impossible for the Cybermen to save them. It's impossible for any of the humans to save them, though. And they crash on Mombas. Obviously, the humans here don't take a liking to what the Cybermen have in mind, especially when they keep being very vague about what their plans are after taking over the base. I believe Ben acted up at one point and was tossed into another room.
Yes, he grabs one of the soldiers' guns. And the Cybermen demonstrate their strength by bending the gun in half, and then
having been tossed into another room. Ben then tries to get the attention of one of the Cybermen while also trying to blind it. It kind of sort of works in the way that he manages to get the Cyberman's weapon away from him. In the picture here on the stream, you'll see that there's this weird circular thing that kind of looks like it could detach from the chest plate, and that is essentially their weapon. They literally hold it up with both hands, and automatically it shoots. Ben manages to get the weapon away from the Cyberman, kills that Cyberman, wanders back into the main computer room for the base. I believe the general? Was he a general, or was he?
Yes, the commander of the base was a general.
Yeah, so the general, when Ben comes quietly wandering back in, takes the weapon away from Ben, shoots all of the Cybermen with it, and they collect all of the weapons. They then wait for the next round of Cybermen to try and appear and take them down as well. While all this has been happening, they finally get in contact with their superiors again, only to find out that the general's son has been shot into space, and the general is trying to find a way to save his son, no matter what the cost, and try and bring him back down. The fight with the Cybermen ensues, but also the son keeps losing energy every time he gets near Monbass because of the apparently Monbass is absorbing all the Monbass is attempting to absorb all the energy from Earth while also planning to destroy the Earth at the same time. The Cybermen do come back again with another round that actually doesn't get instantly killed off. I forget. I think it was like they came back again when the people aligned with the trio from the TARDIS stopped the general from launching a nuke that would not only destroy Monbass, but also would probably destroy half the Earth as well. At least make it unlivable on half the planet. A lot of people are pretty much agreeing that even though we're under invasion, this is not the time for brash, stupid decisions that would kill thousands of people. Or billions, actually, at this point, of people. So they stop the nuke from launching. The Cybermen, after the nuke is stopped, come in and take over the base again. They demand that the nuke be pulled apart and stopped, to which Ben and a couple of other men are sent to the, I guess, the launch pad, if you will, the underground launch pad, to try and pull out the nuke. While they're there, they come across the idea of, well, why aren't the Cybermen themselves doing it? Literally, one of them could probably do this on his own, because they're relatively strong people. They come to the idea that they must be weak against radiation and actually drag one of the Cybermen in momentarily to see its reaction to radiation, which it starts yelling and falling backwards and leaves the room again. Also, back in the computer room, the Doctor has been talking to the Cybermen and the Mombasians, as I was trying to call them. He's been talking to the Cybermen and figures out that their plan is to invade the Earth, take all the people from Earth, and take them back to Mombas, where they would all become Cybermen as well, and then destroy the Earth and move on. To which the Doctor does warn the people in the underground launch pad what's going on, and they manage to figure this plan out on their own. They manage to take uranium rods, I believe, and start to put up a fight with the Cybermen, managing to kill most of them. While this is all happening, the Doctor has also been taken back to the Cybermen spaceship with Holly, and they are both essentially put into seats with cuffs on them to be apparently taken back to Mombas. So while the fighting ensues inside the base, Ben finally gets enough time after they kill most of the Cybermen to head back up to the Doctor and yeah, it was Polly, wasn't it?
Polly was
Yes.
the name of the companion, yes.
Yeah, the female companion's Polly.
I keep kind of sort of spacing on her name. I believe it was Polly, yeah. He comes back up to the two after they watch Mombas explode because it took too much energy from the Earth. He sets Polly and the Doctor free. The Doctor is acting really strange at this point. He actually did collapse at one point for like about half an episode. And he's still sounding really, really strained and strange. And he quickly wanders off towards the TARDIS alone, very quickly. And while there, he undergoes the process to finally begin the first regeneration. He collapses, which allows the TARDIS to unlock its doors. The two companions walk in, and they see the Doctor on the floor momentarily before he begins to glow and change into the second Doctor.
One thing regarding the summary I just want to bring up before we go into other things. I really like the pacing of the way the episodes are paced out. Some episodes in this era have a bit of an issue, but here you have the first episode is very clearly, the humans meet the Doctor and his group, meet Mondas, and then the Cybermen shows up the cliffhanger. The second episode is very clearly humans versus Cybermen. The third episode is very clearly what to do about Mondas, and then the fourth episode is very clearly all of the conclusions to all of those plots, Doctor versus Cybermen and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Ending, of course, with the regeneration, as compared to stretching this out over 7 or 8 episodes, as some serials might have tried to do.
Well, again, sometimes with a lot of the serials from this era, they would either have to take what was written for a greater amount and compress it into a shorter amount, or vice versa, because they were budgeted to do X amount of episodes per year, and I think it was like 50. And
it was close to that, at least, yeah.
And they had only X amount of scripts. So in some cases, yes, the episodes got padded out.
Mm.
This one was either stayed the same or got condensed down.
Mm-hmm. This
is a good number. And by the way, my personal opinion is that this, not quite 2 hours, it's more something like,
I think
it's more something
like an hour and 45.
It's more something like an hour and a half, hour 45 when you actually do the math. But to me, this is actually the perfect length for the average Doctor Who story.
And that becomes the basic rule of thumb for the average Doctor Who episode later on, when they would have the shorter seasons.
Basically, during the fourth Doctor era, that pretty much becomes the standard.
That's when it started to. Actually, it started to during the third Doctor era. but not only after the first season.
Yeah, the third Doctor was more of a mix, but they weren't quite as long as the first and second eras, and then it kind of standardized by the start of the fourth Doctor era. It had pretty much standardized.
I'd say about the start of Sarah Jane's tenure, I think.
Yeah, so the last season of the third.
Yeah, it's when they started the rule of 4 and 6, which was you have four episodes per serial, except for one serial, which has 6.
Sarah Jane's first season was 46466. So it was mostly still 6 episodes at that time.
Okay. They must have been a script short that season. But yeah, because I think the first season of Tom Baker was the only 6er I thought was Genesis.
I'm looking at this, and actually the last 3 episodes of the third Doctor each had 2 4s and 3 6s.
Okay.
And then the fourth Doctor went in with 44264, and then it started doing 444446.
Okay.
And that pretty much stayed steady from there.
Yeah, and then it only started to change up at the tail end of the fifth Doctor, when they tried to make the series 45 minutes as opposed to 25.
Right.
And that required some changing. And then they got into the uber short seasons of the seventh Doctor, where it was like 13 episodes, half hour each. And that changed the format as well.
Now, to briefly discuss the co-stars of this episode, although they were really interchangeable. By the way, did anyone see the? I think at least one of you seen the War Machines? Howard Ben and Holly.
Yes.
Largely, you thought they were background characters till the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen at least the beginning of the Smugglers, which essentially the way they got on board the TARDIS is. Tell me if this sounds familiar. They accidentally walk on board the TARDIS with good intentions. The Doctor takes off with them, yells at them. They want to go back home, and he can't bring them. That sound familiar?
Yes.
It sounds like a cookie cutter.
And it's actually, as of this point, they have not actually left Earth. They've gone from where they started to... I forget which century, but to where the Smugglers was. So that was on Earth in, maybe a couple hundred years ago. To now they're in 1986, which is Earth, but 20 years in the future.
Still better than where they were.
Yep.
But yeah, and then they would go to from there. They'd go to Vulcan, and not the one with Spock. And then they would go to the Highlands of Scotland in the 1600s, I think.
Yeah.
And then they would go. I forget where the Underwater Menace happened, but I think it was like
the alien planet.
Alien planet.
I believe it was, yes.
Then the moon.
From what I vaguely remember of it.
Then the moon, and then I think they finally got off at the right place.
More or less, maybe.
The Underwater Menace is on Atlantis, so I'm assuming that's Earth.
Oh, it was. Okay, so yeah, that would have been Earth then.
So, wow, it's like a Russell T. Davies season. All that traveling, and they go to one alien planet.
Just so they could shake hands with the Daleks and then boldly flee. Yeah, Ben and Polly were kind of bland.
Yeah, they're probably... There's a couple of reasons for it, but they're pretty much the least remembered and least discussed companions, at least for having a full season on the TARDIS of the classic era. Part of this is because there's not a single complete serial with them in it. Every serial that they're in is missing at least 2 episodes.
Yeah, there's at
Most
least
of them are.
missing
Oh no,
one or two.
I'm sorry. This was the most complete. I think it's only missing one episode. Yeah. So this is the most complete
I don't know if there's
episode
any
they
missing
were.
episode of the War Machines.
The War
No,
Machine.
the War Machine is complete.
Okay, but they're
seen
not
the War
That's the
Machines,
only
it's
one, and
complete.
they weren't officially companions yet.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's complete, but they're not really completely in it.
Yeah, they're introduced, but they're not really companions at the time. Dodo is.
And she disappears halfway through the story.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Dodo is the other least talked about, least remembered companion of the classic era.
A little girl, and she was, from what I
And she
understand from
had-
other people, about as stupid as her name.
Well, she had half a season and had little to do in much of it.
Mm-hmm. She brought a cold to the monoids.
Yeah, that didn't go very well.
Where was
No.
she introduced? Massacre or?
I'm trying to remember.
I'm trying
It's
to
either
remember
the
too, I
Massacre
can't
or the
think of
Ark.
when she was introduced. I've been watching the Diamanda Hug and stuff lately too, and I can't remember what episode.
Yeah, it would either have been the Massacre or the Ark. I'm thinking it was the Massacre.
Must have been the Massacre.
Let's see.
What's
Dodo
that?
Chaplet was the character name. It was the Massacre. She's from Earth, 1966.
Which is another thing. The modern day companions seem to be the one with the least, other than Ian and Barbara. The modern day companions seem to be the one with the least to them, which is one reason why it's so perplexing to me that New Who seems to stick only with modern companions.
Really, it was because that was the function of the companion, was to be the viewer avatar. It was supposed to be kind of the perspective from which the audience could relate to
But
traveling with the
there's
Doctor.
a certain point where they stop being a viewer avatar and start just being annoying.
Well, if you're turning your character into a Mary Sue, yes. If you're making your character a complete and total dunce, yes. The
And then
problem,
there's just
Dunce?
bland people with nothing really to do.
I mean, if you look at Ian and Barbara, those were wonderful characters.
Mm-hmm.
They were well acted. They were well written.
And they had their own. They had a motivation.
Yes.
And while these two had motivation, they weren't. It seemed like they really didn't know what to do with these characters.
Yeah, there is a bit to them. Ben is repeatedly more skeptical than Polly, but that's
And also
pretty
tries
much
to
all
wise
it had.
crack really badly.
They're
Which just
essentially younger versions of Ian and Barbara with just less to them and without a Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or
It
actually,
was
it's kind of like if you try to combine them. If you try to combine Ian and Barbara with the young girl version that's been traveling with them ever since Susan, and try to make that into a single group, and that's what comes out.
Yeah, you get a younger version of Barbara and Ian, and they're kind of meh.
Yeah, their motivations are kind of weird.
I believe Polly just wants to be wherever Ben's going, and Ben just wants to get back to Earth so he can get back to his ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically, Dodo meets them in a club.
Mm-hmm. As I recall, yes.
And basically what happens is they meet him in a club, and eventually tells them that she's going to stay in London. The Doctor, they stop by the TARDIS outside and tells the Doctor. The Doctor thanks them, heads into the box, who Ben and Polly follow because they're going to give back Dodo's key, and the Doctor is already in the process of starting the TARDIS.
Yeah.
It's like, oops.
Like, Doctor, you really need to either lock the door behind you or just stop taking off without looking. I can't say that because Ian and Barbara, he knew were in the TARDIS when he took off. So.
Oh, yes. He did it deliberately because they knew too much. They knew too much, and at the same time, not enough.
There is some character growth with the Doctor as well, because when he picked up Ian, and he was adamant, "Oh, I know exactly how to drive this thing." Here, by the time of the Smugglers, he's pretty honest. I have no idea how to get where I want to in this thing.
And that ability comes and goes over the course of the years.
Yeah, it came in season 6B again, arguably, and then it came during certain points of the Fourth Doctor's era, especially when he wanted to impress Romana.
Oh, and you could tell he was really trying to impress Romana.
Especially second Romana.
Yes.
Well, first Romana had this whole thing where she knew a lot of book smarts, but really nothing about the world outside the Academy. So the Doctor did his best to show that he knew pretty much about, like, he was like, "Oh, name coordinates anywhere, and I'll tell you what's there." And he had that whole shtick going on with during her season.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was just him trying to assert himself as the superior Time Lord.
Yeah.
And then it became, when it was him and Lalla Ward, yes, it's almost, you could actually start cutting aside from the Doctor and cutting in the Stan Marsh "There's a Girl That I Like" song from South Park the movie.
Because she was also a little bit crazy, to be quite honest.
It was much like people claim Tennant became the male counterpart to Rose. Really, Romana too was the female counterpart to the Doctor.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Very
kind
much.
of...
She had a pink outer jacket to the Doctor's usual brown. She had just a plain white scarf compared to the Doctor's rainbow.
Well, remember, the Doctor didn't like her until didn't like that appearance until she wore his own clothes.
Doctor outfit, yes.
He was not fond of her stealing someone else's body, so to speak. Not stealing, but copying.
Yeah. But he didn't mind once she wore his clothes.
Well, because he saw the clothes and liked it. He did enough to hide her, hide who she was, and then when he pulled off the hat, there she was. And at that point, she's like, "Oh, all right, it's your body." But yeah, but there was really nothing, and it could just be the lack of full serials. There's really been nothing to set Ben and Polly away from previous companions. To be honest, the previous guy, I think his name was Steven.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Really didn't stand out for me either.
This is true.
He was just the token guy.
I think Steven managed to stay with the Doctor a bit longer than they did, I think.
Mm-hmm. I think he
was from serial 16 all the way to 26. So he had 10 serials plus the end of the previous.
Yeah, because wasn't it? It was Ian, Barbara, and Susan. Then Ian and Barbara. Then Ian, Barbara, and Vicky, if I recall.
Yeah.
And then it became Vicky, and then Steven and Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
It was only just Vicky for about 5 minutes because Steven just showed up. He's like, "Oh, by the way, I was a prisoner here. I'm going to come with you."
Okay, so it was Ian, Barbara, Vicky, and then Steven and Vicky.
Yeah.
And then Steven and Dodo. And then Dodo, then Ben and Polly.
Yep. It was just Ben and Polly for about 3 serials, then they picked up Jamie in the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
And Jamie stayed the course as long as he could.
Yeah, but Jamie stood out, and really, of companions that stand out in chronological order, it's really Ian, Barbara, Susan, and then Jamie.
And that's also because Jamie has one of the longest runs of any companion. I think he and Sarah Jane are tied for number of seasons. He might have an edge on episodes. I'd have to compare.
But yeah, it wasn't just that. It was the fact that the character was well written. He had all the dialogue, you know, and he had the Scottish accent, which gave him personality.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the Scottish accent in
even
Doctor
without
Who.
the Scottish accent, he had personality. He was their blunt force guy.
Well, that was the role of Stephen, and that was the role of Ian.
Yeah,
they were the action character.
And that was the role of
Ben,
Harry.
it should have been the role of Ben, but Ben really didn't have it that often.
It was the role of Harry. I don't know if you could consider him as having personality. I guess you could.
And that role eventually also went off to Leela.
Leela was the first female to be in the action role.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which also really made her stand out.
That was also the role of Ben. Not Benton. Wait. Did they have a private, or am I thinking Benton? Maybe I'm thinking Benton.
Sergeant Benton.
Yeah. They didn't have anyone lower than him, right?
They did, but not in
not
any.
As a regular.
Not as a regular. No, everyone else was a red shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And although that term wasn't used, that's what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually around the time frame that they actually created what would eventually be called red shirts in a different show.
Mm-hmm.
Cannon fodder.
Well, the second Doctor era and Star Trek the original series are the two that happened at the same time, or that were made at the same time.
Yes.
Star Trek the original series was happening through most of the second Doctor era.
Yeah, 66. So 66 through 68 or 69, depending on what month. Which would have been concurrent with the second Doctor. The other main thing to talk about with this is that this, of course, is the first of what would eventually become known as regeneration. Now, the first two regenerations are kind of different, largely because that term didn't really come to exist until 1974. With the fourth Doctor, it was the first time it was actually referred to as regeneration. So these two, up until finally, I mean, I would honestly argue that Time of the Doctor is really the thing that set the first two regenerations in stone as regenerations. Because that's where you really can't argue, no, it was the TARDIS, no, the Time Lords did something else. They're very clearly regenerations as of now. But up until then, I mean, this episode, I mean, yeah, this event is never referred to as a regeneration. And neither is the second one, which we'll see at the end of the War Games.
Mm-hmm. But it was still in the canon as them being regenerations. I mean, you know, they would mention them in, like, the Doctor Who illustrated A to Z.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, in terms of, since Doctor Who is very good for only what's on screen counts, the first time they're actually referred to as a regeneration specifically on screen is Time of the Doctor, isn't it?
No.
You can kind of count the fact that the Time Lords consider them separate entities in the three Doctors as kind of proof, but I don't know if, you know...
And the fact that, you know, Herndl's doctor asks Peter Davidson, which regeneration are you? And he goes, fourth. And he goes, oh, wow, there are five of me now.
Okay, that's a good point. So that actually predates this. Which is interesting because that actually, any questions that Brain of Morbius introduces, that would mean that is kind of retconned by the five Doctors then as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that pretty much stated at that point that Peter Davidson was the fifth Doctor. There were none prior to Hartnell.
Which is why those extra images are usually referred to as the Mobius regenerations.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the one thing that makes the most sense.
So, yeah, this does count as a regeneration.
Yep. But yeah,
of course,
for the first 10 or 11 years of the show, really, they were not really referred to as that. So this is kind of
no, it was just a process that hadn't been given a name.
Right. Well, it originally this is referred to as the TARDIS rejuvenating him, which even in certain magazines, I think up until the 80s, they specifically stated, oh, this is different from Regeneration, until they finally cleared that up as no, it's not.
No, I think being in the TARDIS eases the process slightly.
Yeah.
Because you notice the Doctor always seems to gravitate to the TARDIS.
Right.
When it's time
to regenerate, or shortly afterwards. The second Doctor didn't have a choice. The third Doctor regenerated, and the first thing he did was pop into the TARDIS. Or fourth Doctor, I should say. Third Doctor, when he regenerated, the first thing he wanted was shoes and his TARDIS key. Fifth Doctor regenerated in the TARDIS, regenerated outside, immediately came into the TARDIS and was very unstable. Sixth Doctor was even worse, and he regenerated in the console room.
Yep. The seventh Doctor...
the transition from fifth to sixth was also the fact that I believe he was poisoned, so that probably didn't help matters any. Trying to get the poison out of the system. 6 to 7, he bumped his head on the console. He didn't have that hard of a time regeneration until the Ronnie gave him frickin' amnesia serum.
Seventh to 8th is the first time that he's really outside the TARDIS for the whole process, and that's the time where that's the time
he's
where
a little shaky, and he regenerates posthumously in that one. Yeah,
and forgets that he's the Doctor.
Yep. Well, that's been done before. The fifth was a little unstable in that way, and the fourth, I think, couldn't remember who he was either.
Yeah.
But it was never a massive overgoing process though until the fifth Doctor's regeneration, and then the sixth Doctor made it, basically a season. And then the eighth Doctor had basically a good chunk of the movie. And let's see, the 10th Doctor spent his regeneration, post-regeneration, unconscious for half the episode.
Yeah, he regenerated in the TARDIS, and so did the next one, and the next one, actually.
Everything in comparison, Matt Smith's regeneration was fairly smooth.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, depending on how badly he crashes the TARDIS in August.
No, I meant Tennant to Smith. His regeneration was fairly smooth. I mean, all he does is he talks about new thing, wants some weird food, and then boom, he's off being the Doctor. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Capaldi.
Apparently he's already forgotten how to fly the TARDIS.
But, as much as this was, also the epic ending to William Hartnell, it was also an even more epic beginning to the Doctor's second favorite villains.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the Cybermen started. And you know why the Cybermen started? It's because at the time, Terry Nation wouldn't let them use Daleks.
I don't know if that's why they started, but that's why they started taking over. I mean, as of this time, in this same season, we're going to have 2 Dalek episodes.
Yes, I know.
We won't have them for several years later.
Yeah. Well, there's a little difference between that. We actually have had Daleks relatively constantly throughout the run of the show.
Yeah, this is the last season that we'll have multiple Dalek episodes for quite a while. Yeah.
Yeah, but we won't see them again until season 8, I think. Yeah. But it's all I think they were given notice that he was planning on shipping them internationally.
Or trying to.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have access to them, so they scheduled those 2 Dalek episodes in the same series before they lost them.
And that's also notable. That's also notable that they're the only 2 Dalek serials for decades that were not written by Terry Nation.
I think there was 1 or 2 in the Third Doctor era, but yeah.
Okay.
I think, Day may not have been written by Nation, but Death was. And I don't know about Planet of the Daleks.
Okay, actually, Day of the Daleks was a Season 9 opener. So yeah, we go from Season 4, which is our third year in a row with 12 or more Dalek episodes, to Season 9 is the next time we see them again.
Yeah, when I said Season 8, I was guessing.
Right. Yeah, that's why I just wanted to check. And it's close. It's the premiere to Season 9. So it's almost Season 8, but not quite. Which, if it was Season 8, it probably would have been the Master and the Daleks. Or at least you would have had a good chance of it.
Anyway, basically knowing that they were going to lose the Daleks, and knowing that every time they had an episode with the Daleks, they had to pay royalties to Terry Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the production staff, Kit Pedler, who was the unofficial scientific advisor to the show, and Gary Davis, basically sat down and started discussing an alternate monster, an alternate reoccurring villain for Doctor Who. And after hashing it out for a while, what they came up with was the Cybermen. And the Cybermen are not have never been constant in their form. They have changed their appearance almost as often as the Doctor has.
Just about, yeah. But that's also because cyber technology keeps updating. Don't you know?
I mean, here they're wearing what looks to be like vinyl body stockings, essentially, with the metal apparatus on them, and they have that bizarre way of talking.
Yes, they do.
And from here, they move on to a more metallic. I think it's essentially what they use is like latex or rubber that's been painted metal for the bodysuits, and they go from that voice to basically using what I refer to as a cancer box, which is the vocal
like this.
That was closer to the 80s, Matt. But no, it's that metallic. I'm going to sound like this. It sounds like Ned from South Park.
Yeah.
It's that twang. If you've ever seen the original Mad Max movie, one of the cops in there gets his throat sliced, and for the rest of the movie he's using that same kind of metallic voice.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say it was Bird, but no, that was a different one. That was a different cop.
But yeah, it's I can see the intercept. Yeah, it's that I can't even do it anymore. But it's
I keep going too deep.
Yeah, you do.
But that's my mechanical
I can
voice.
see the interceptor. Yeah, that kind of voice there. And they continued that to the Second Doctor's era. The Cybermen were, oddly enough, not in the Third Doctor era at all, after being very prevalent in the Second Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did the Second Doctor face the Cybermen?
I'm thinking
1,
5.
2,
Let me
3.
see.
They had Tomb. They had
the moon base. They had Tomb.
Invasion.
They had Wheel in Space. That's at least 4. That's at least 4
at least
times.
4 episodes with
And
Cybermen.
Then
Yeah.
they're not seen again until the Fourth Doctor era, where they're still looking like they do in the Invasion, but they don't have the metallic voice.
And by the way, the reason I was just quiet for a bit was I was checking on this, but I think this is the only time that we have 2 Cybermen stories and 2 Dalek stories in the same season. I don't think that's ever happened since.
No.
Not that I'm aware of, yeah.
I thought that if you counted Pandorica Opens, you might have a second occurrence, but I don't think that's even the case.
It's almost the case in the second series, where you have Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel.
But there's only one Dalek story in that season.
Yeah.
Technically, the Daleks made an appearance at the end of the episode before, but it's only a cameo, and that's why it almost counts.
I count the two-parter as one serial.
Okay.
If you count Handles as a Cyberman appearance in Series 7, which I don't, then you would get that in Series 7.
Yeah, I don't.
Where were the Daleks? Oh wait, they were technically in that
Season A.
Well, they were also in Day of the Doctor too. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they're in Day of the Doctor. Yeah, they don't have the new Cybermen. I was kind of hoping they would bring out new Cybermen other than Handles.
Supposedly that was going to happen. Oh, actually, no. Actually, if you count, if you count Time of the Doctor as part of Series 7, we do have the Wooden Cybermen. We have the Nightmare and Silver Cybermen, and we also have 3 Dalek episodes.
So yeah, Season 7 is the first time that both those monsters have appeared in more than one story.
Of course,
since
often
Series 4 or since Season 4.
Often the Christmas special is attributed to the following season, though, so that's kind of on the edge.
Yeah, it's kind of, we're not sure where this is going to place.
Yeah, so it might actually get pulled off again.
And granted, Series 8 doesn't actually start for another 7 or so months, so there is reason to consider it part of 7, but still.
Yeah, and especially considering it's Matt's outgoing, and really what we're going to see come in August is Capaldi's first. I almost wish they'd do an Easter special this year, so we'd have Capaldi in an isolated episode. Yeah,
like his Christmas invasion.
Yeah, it's really nice when they get to do that, but then again, Matt Smith had to act from the first episode of Series 5, so... But no, the Cybermen, and almost every time they changed a little bit of something. Except for Revenge of the Cybermen, where they were... they lost their voice.
They changed the voice.
Yeah.
They changed the voice, yes. And they also had black helmets. One of them had a black helmet showing that he was leader.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we'd seen the Cyber leader.
Did Attack change
it's the first time
anything?
we saw Cyber leader, and I believe previously we saw Cyber commander.
Oh, that's right. Weren't there, wait, which,
Controller.
I always forget.
Cyber controller.
Which one had the stealth Cyberman?
Was that Attack? That's Attack.
Okay. So they did change something in Attack.
Yeah. The next time we see them is Earthshock, which is a 5th Doctor episode. So we go from seeing them in the first season of 4th Doctor, and then we go for 7 to 8 seasons without seeing Cybermen again. And then they show up in Earthshock.
And they are hugely modified compared to the previous versions.
Yeah, there's a complete redesign.
The only thing that really stays is the handles.
Yeah,
and there's got to be some sort of chest piece.
Yeah, the 5th Doctor Cybermen are pretty much your standard robot army, just out to take over the universe.
And but the one thing that does put them apart a little bit is the fact that you still see a little bit of something moving when they talk.
Yeah, and at the same time, that bothers me a little.
I am actually really cool with it. Because there's got to be something that moves in there in order for them to talk.
They didn't move their mouth to talk in this episode.
Yeah, they did move their mouths to talk in this, and they would have mechanical mouths that would click open for the other previous versions of Cybermen.
Yeah, they just open the mouth and the entire sentence would come out.
With the cigarette voice box, yes.
Not yet. That's.
I'm saying with the
even with this one, yeah. The other ones you had a mouth plate that opened, and then this one the guy would open his mouth like he's going la, and the sentence would be dubbed in.
I believe with people that were actually on set.
Probably at that era, I wouldn't doubt it.
I know the cyber controller actually got to be billed for a speaking part because even though he wasn't actually saying what was being said, he had to move his mouth flap in time with it.
Yeah, he was one of the few Cybermen that actually got close up of the mouth flap.
But of course, the Cybermen came back in the second series of the new one with a complete redesign, new voice, as done by Nick Briggs.
With Russell T Davies' whole thing being that they're steel and not silver, which lasted a grand total of
3-4 episodes.
Well, it lasted a few years. It lasted, let's see,
3 or 4 stories though.
Well, yeah, it lasted till Kill Nightmare and Silver when they brought back Silver.
Yeah, but, again, they're also dealing with the Mondazian crew, probably in Nightmare and Silver.
Oh, I hate you, BBC. I want this now. Apparently, if you buy 3 of these Cybermen, including the original, there are parts to create the Cyber Controller from Tomb of the Cybermen.
Referring to what Randy just said, it's interesting. I'm trying to remember what this argument was, but I saw something that someone posted that was essentially proof that the Nightmare and Silver versions were upgrades of the Cybermen, which I still prefer the idea that they're a blend between the two different species and that they just went forward together.
That's my definition of what the Cyberiad is.
Yeah.
Because the Cyberiad fits into neither background for the Mondes Cybermen or the Cybermen, as I refer to them. But if somehow they met and cross-assimilated each other, I could see the Cyberiad coming out of that.
Right, and that reminds me, it's an interesting thing, on rewatching The 10th Planet, I realized there's a part where the Cybermen go off to have a meeting with one another. They don't speak anything out loud, and then within seconds they've come to a conclusion between each other. So I'm kind of wondering if they do have a Wi-Fi thing going on even this early, or if that's just they didn't
I think
record
they
anything.
did, because they did something similar to that in Tomb as well, I believe. They obviously didn't know what a wireless connection was back then.
Right.
But,
well, they knew radio.
Yeah, they kind of knew radio, and that could have been the closest idea they would have had to it. It was just a quiet radio inside their heads.
The thing is, in the 10th Planet, there's also the question of, well, maybe they just didn't record sound because it would be confusing to listeners trying to hear what the humans were saying with Cybermen in the background.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and for the 4 Cybermen you have to collect to make the Cyber Commander, one of them is obviously from Tomb because he has 2 cyber mats, and he's actually holding one. So they come with extras. Oh. I equal parts loathe you and love you now because of this. Now I need to get that because I want a Cyberman collection now.
You know, I'm trying to figure out what proof you would have that they were a descendant from the Cybermen.
There is no proof.
Yeah, because they refer to them as being remnants from the Cyber Wars, which has been mentioned in Doctor Who repeatedly in the classic era.
Yep. Which very much means that they are very much the original classic Cybermen. And the fact that they're referred to as silver instead of iron is even further note to me, as far as I'm concerned.
I still want to make a third breed of Cybermen based on chrome. So you'd have steel, silver, and chrome.
The War of the Cybermen.
Yeah, the chrome Cybermen, then all of a sudden the Fire and Safari Cybermen show up and...
No, it was an idea for a story I had called Three-Way Rumble, which was basically the 3 different factions of Cybermen fighting.
I still like the idea of a plastic group of Cybermen coming and them feeling that the metal ones are inferior due to being harder to reproduce, and the metal ones feeling the plastic are inferior due to being easier to destroy, and fighting over that.
That really makes them sound like Daleks.
True.
And furthermore, Autons. They're practically plastic Cybermen already.
No, because Autons don't really start from humans. They're just plastic that is given life.
True, but it still feels very similar in nature. you're still usually getting a humanoid made out of plastic.
Oh wow, there is actually 3 different groups of Cybermen in here.
I think Mondas and Telos are usually.
No, Telos is just the adopted cyber home. They're still part of the same Mondas group.
Yeah.
However, the TARDIS Wiki have listed the Cyber Legion as possibly a 3rd group.
Cyber Legion?
Yeah, that was mentioned that the 12th Cyber Legion was destroyed by the 11th Doctor in A Good Man Goes to War.
And they're all wearing Cybus costumes, I believe.
Yep.
Modified Cybus. Probably.
Because they could not actually afford to get new Cybermen outfits for that, although they wanted to.
Wikipedia states is of the impression that the Nightmare and Silver ones appear to be a mixture of both Mondasian and Cybus Cybermen as well.
I think that they're only going off the appearance, though.
Yeah, but it literally gives no reason to actually believe that other than the fact that it would make sense. So.
Yeah, and I'm going based on the fact that they mentioned the Cyber Wars, which was something that was, mentioned
and
in events of Cybermen in particular.
Yeah, and I might also further add that Cybermen are always updating their looks, so how could we tell that they wouldn't automatically come to this?
I mean, I think a Cybusman actually is. I think the chess playing one is a Cybusman, but that doesn't mean that all of them.
Yeah, their wiki actually says that a couple of parallel cyber suits were found by him following the Cyber Wars. And one of which was turned into basically the Turk.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't the one Cyberman that was playing chess a Cybusman looking?
Yeah, he was. That's the one I refer to as the Turk.
That does make some interesting questions, doesn't it?
But that doesn't mean that they were recovered by the war. That just means he found them in scavenge.
Yeah. But it still makes for some interesting questions as to where exactly that came from.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only possible way that I could combine the two.
That's why I like the term Cyberiad as being some kind of hybrid of both of them. Basically taking the best traits of the Cybusmen and the best traits of the Mondasmen and putting them together.
We shall take your likeness and add it to our own. More and more Borg references coming.
Well, they're getting more and more Borg-like.
Yeah.
Including the whole updating thing now, yeah.
Yeah. They're adapting like Borg now. I'm waiting for their hands to come out with little cyber assimilation nanoprobes.
Well, isn't that just essentially launching the little cyber?
Yeah, that's pretty much what. That's largely what the mites were doing in Nightmare.
Yeah, just
and then waiting for Doctor Who to hire Jerry Ryan as a de-cyberized Cyberman.
Don't we wish?
Who would get angry at the Doctor all the time and spend every episode of Doctor Who learning a new lesson about humanity. No, I don't, because that really would turn Doctor Who into Voyager.
And then wouldn't that mean that the Doctor would have to be a complete and total nut bar?
Only if you watch SF Debris. don't agree with their point of view on all of that.
Oh, I don't know. He's playing a very blatant, oh my god, what the hell moments.
Mostly, I just dislike the writing in Voyager, as it's not very. It's like Moffat writing. It's not really.
Not good writing. Not very good.
Not really.
Mesh up right.
Yeah, continuity favorites. Anyway,
other than the Trek tangent,
we've talked about the. We've talked about Regeneration. We've talked about the Cybermen. We should probably talk about the episodes themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
I felt this was a very snappy 4-part serial.
Agreed.
It was kind of one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. It didn't have a lot of areas where it fell slow.
Right.
No, not at
all. But nor did it feel like they were rushing it.
Nope. Yeah.
It just worked. It just synced well together, which is really good when you're writing somebody's swan song.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pay attention.
Oh yeah.
Pay attention.
Oh god! Imagine if Hartnell's last episode had been like a 7-parter where he got kidnapped, escaped, kidnapped, escaped, kidnapped, and then escaped.
Well, it kind of would be like his entire 3-season run in a nutshell, wouldn't it?
Pretty much.
Yes, and then everyone watching would want to blow their heads off. Anyway.
But then again, you are describing the War Games pretty well too. Only make it like a 10-episode serial.
Yeah.
Ugh.
At least yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yet, at the same time, the War Games seems to work. So
yeah, the War Games did different things with it than most Hartnell episodes did.
Yeah, they weren't exactly captured by the same group all the time.
Right.
It was interesting. We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. I think we're going on long enough to not add extra episodes in.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt snappy. It felt good. I can't really fault them. I mean, this was written in 1966. The Apollo missions hadn't even started yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess some of them are pseudoscience.
This is, I'd probably put this, I haven't made a list, but I'd say probably top 3 or top 5 best paced Hartnell episodes for sure. I mean, it's right up there with the Sensorites, or I'm trying to think of another good example.
Actually, I'd put this one up there pretty close to the Dalek Invasion.
Dalek Invasion's pretty good on that.
I mean, even though the Doctor doesn't have quite as much to do as he did in Dalek Invasion, it's still a very tight story.
Should we talk about Hartnell being not well enough to be in the entire serial, which is part of the reason why it was written in the first place?
I'm not sure that's the case.
I don't think he was like fall down ill or anything, but
no, I think he was
starting to really have memory issues, and he felt that it was time to step down.
I've in some other accounts that I've read also indicated that it was of the impression that he was largely written out of the middle of the serial because his health wasn't up to it.
Not that I'm aware of.
No,
and again, it was only for like half an episode.
Yeah, it's really not one where they would have had to write him out. Because it wasn't like he was gone for an episode.
Yeah, it wasn't even a full episode.
He collapsed at the end of one episode, and he was
the very beginning of the next one.
Within 10 minutes of or 5 to 10 minutes of the next episode.
Was he gone from the 3rd episode?
Nope. Nope. Because that's the
He collapsed during the 3rd episode, yeah.
He collapsed, but then he's back up again within 5 minutes. At the very
beginning of the 4th episode, yes.
No, he's up and going by the 4th episode. He collapsed at the end of the 2nd.
Okay.
And is up a few minutes into the 3rd.
Oh, so he was actually out for a full episode then?
No, he was up and going a few minutes into the third. He collapsed at the end of the second. So 2 to 3. That's contiguous episodes, Matt. Because by the end of the fourth, he's there arguing with the Cybermen.
Yeah, because he just got up, and they literally just brought him back in at the very beginning of that episode. He wasn't... Actually, he was gone for the entire third episode.
I think he was.
Yeah. Yeah, he was gone for the entire third episode. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Maybe it was really part of the script, or maybe he really was having issues.
Oh, yeah, he was too ill to work. But this was not because of his illness. He was sick.
He was actually sick, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it wasn't part of the whole
it wasn't part of the
issue
whole
with
mental
him
illnesses
leaving.
he was having. It was actually really health issues.
Okay, so it was just poor
Yeah.
timing with other issues.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he was ill. If you bear in mind if there was any truth in what we saw in Adventures in Space and Time, it's quite possible that he kind of drank himself into bad health the night before.
Maybe.
Because, he heard that he was basically being let go. And just, didn't take it well.
Interestingly, I'm not really seeing a behind-the-scenes or anything on the TARDIS Wiki
for this episode
article about this. There's story notes and there's production errors, but that wouldn't really fall under either.
Yeah. Which is kind of odd. Yeah, I don't know what to think about that. He was actually gone for an entire episode. I felt it feels like it's only like half an episode, but then again, that's probably because they tightened up the story so well.
And I believe he was out of the room most of the second episode as well. I don't remember him having much to do there.
I can't quite remember where in the second episode he fell over. But I remember they had to take him into another room, and Polly had to go with him.
Yeah, like I know he was fairly active in the first and the fourth, but after that, I mean, in between that, I can't really.
He on the Monday before the program was due to be recorded, he sent a telegram to the production team, informing him that he was too ill to work. Gary Davis rewrote the script to explain the doctor's absence, his sudden collapse, and gave his dialogue to other characters, most noticeably Ben. This was not much of an interruption to the episode's production, as it would seem, as all 4 episodes had been written so that Hartnell would have relatively little to do in case of just such an event. The original draft of episode 4 did not feature the Doctor regenerating at the end.
No.
And that makes you question things a little bit too.
Well, really, I mean, if you cut out the last 5 minutes, this really could have been just like any other story with another First Doctor story happening after it.
Almost, except they would still exclude the ending where they kind of say goodbye to everybody and take off.
Yeah. Whereas Power of the Daleks should be an entirely different episode if it had Hartnell.
The First Doctor's last words were originally scripted as something similar to "No, I simply will not give in." But that line was never recorded, as they were running short of time during the production, and they wanted to make sure that the regeneration was recorded as well as possible.
That says something right there about the production schedules at the time, because imagine they didn't have time to do another take because they didn't have time.
Yeah, the production was very rigid. If they they had a 5 o'clock wall. If they were not done at 5,
they would turn the lights off.
Lights would go off, and it doesn't matter if they were in mid-take or anything.
Yep. And also, I believe another problem that they frequently had on that studio is that if the lights got too warm, the sprinklers would go off inside the building?
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not by that time.
No.
No.
Well, I know it was a first season problem for sure.
For the first season, they had that thing. After that protection season, they were moved into slightly better location.
Good, because
actually, it does look like one part in the first Dalek serial that it looked like they did get drowned out at one point, and they were wet, and you could hear dripping in the background.
Mm-hmm.
They did have to replace the roundels often enough that if the sprinklers kept going off, it would have been even more frequently.
Yeah, it was the early days that they were recorded. Their first studio that did that. And they only lasted in there a season, maybe two, before they were moved into better. Really, once Dalek Mania took off,
they could afford it.
The BBC was a little more, yeah, we'll bump you over to this studio. So by this time they were in that better studio.
Mm-hmm. Now
but they still had the turning the lights off at 5. That was a union thing. The filmmakers, the gaffers union, would not work after 5.
Wow.
And so they would just basically 5 o'clock, boom, lights off.
Other than restrictions due to stuff like that, I would say the only thing I had really questioned with the writing was the method of, like, the whole thing about the siphoning energy and the world blowing itself up. I feel like I don't know. I feel like they could have come up with something that made a little bit more sense to that. What do you think?
Yeah,
it was a little hokey. Well, I didn't really like the concept of Earth's twin planet being an identical twin, except upside down.
Right.
Yeah, that's already a little bit hokey.
Yeah, that was. It's the '60s, so I can roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when I think like I kind of have rewritten that in my head to be where I just imagine that Mondas is another casualty of the Time War. And they couldn't explain it, so that's what they thought happened to it. But that's really, obviously, in no way official in any sense of the word.
No.
That's just in my own head.
Well, I like the concept of what Mondas was. I like the concept of it being Earth's twin planet, but my mental image of it is a pair of twin worlds in the same orbit. So, in the early days, there was Earth and Mondas did something to shoot themselves out of their orbit.
Mm-hmm.
They slingshot them. They used, thrusters, whatever, to slingshot themselves around the sun and rocketed out of the solar system, leaving Earth on a solitary orbit. If you think about it, they really could have tied that into why the dinosaurs went extinct.
Well, they
massive planetary shift causing an ice age.
Which is another thing. And this would have been heavily criticized if it was written today, but Mondas just showing up and it having no gravitational pressure on the Earth, nothing with the tides, no earthquakes, none of that stuff happening. I don't know if that's something that can be forgiven. I don't know if that's something that can be forgiven based on the time it was written, or whether that's just something that really.
I think it's really a time that it was written. They still really didn't know about that sort of thing yet.
I think they had an inkling, but it wasn't a big one yet.
It wasn't something that every writer could be expected to know.
Yeah, it's not everything that everyone would have known at the time. We didn't know that the moon affected waves yet.
Mm-hmm. We didn't know about planetary.
I think they always knew that it did because that was something that astrologers knew and everything. But how is another
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure how much tidal forces was known yet. They knew about planetary gravity, but I don't think they knew on the microscopic effects of planetary gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you got to remember this is still the early days of space exploration.
Yeah.
we're still firing off Titan rockets at this point.
And
the Apollo missions are on the boards, is coming up in the following year, but we still had at least one Gemini left, and of course the British space program was like the world's biggest joke. That's one thing I've always loved about watching these old Doctor Who serials. Is
World Space Program,
the International Space Program, or the British Space Authority, and they had high hopes.
A little too high.
Yeah, this was around the time when. No, actually, I'm trying to think. This is kind of around the time when makers of Godzilla films thought that we'd have a colony on the moon by 1999.
Oh yeah, you hear. You hear them mention, when they mention 1986, that there was just another a lunar landing that just happened, and I'm sitting here going, I'm like, gee, it's 1986. Oh, look, the Challenger just exploded. Our space program just got sent to the scrap heap for 5 years. And the British space program was an absolute flop.
International Space Program.
And another kind of issue with that is the Cybermen having a complete lack of ontological inertia. Their planet is gone, and poof, no more Cybermen.
In a way, I understood that. Apparently, Mondas had developed energy generation by induction. And apparently, a good chunk of the Cybermen's inner workings was a power tap from their own
planet. Yeah,
I think that would have made more sense to me if they had just keeled over and died versus.
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Instead of shrinking into their so that just the outer skin was left. Yeah.
Right.
Instead of deflating like balloons.
Yeah, I agree that it would have just made sense if they suddenly ceased functioning and keeled over. It would have made it a little more realistic. However, it's taking a step away from realism. Let's talk about the animation in the 4th episode. All three of us managed to get a copy of the animated 4th episode, which is done by a group. Let me get the name of the group. Does anybody have it?
I don't have it off the top of my head, no.
Give me a second.
Go get your box set.
I had this up earlier.
Is it on the Moonbase thing? No, I don't think it mentions that. Unless it's on
just mentions the one guy, I think.
No, that was me that mentioned that guy. Anyway, the group that does this is called Planet 55.
Planet 55, that's what it was, yeah.
Yes, they are a New Zealand animation studio. And as I mentioned earlier, the head of their production studio is a guy who used to be known on DeviantArt and on YouTube as Mighty Otaku King, all one word. He was the guy that did the Doctor Who anime. It's still on YouTube, look it up. He was writing an original Doctor Who story, kind of done in a Masamune Shirow style, a Ghost in the Shell, as far as the art style. He had done a very impressive Third Doctor, and very good likenesses of both the Delgado and Ainley Masters. Yet with a anime redesign on the Cybermen, which looked fairly badass.
Yes.
And apparently what happened is Studio 55, or whatever became Studio 55, snapped him up. Or, excuse me, Planet 55 snapped him up, and he was unable to complete this project because of a pact with something he had to sign with the BBC. So because of this, that went by the wayside, but now we're getting these classic serials done with what I have to consider is some really beautiful animation.
I do have one one nitpick, I guess you'd say, and that is that with the level of detail that's put into the faces, that would work better with a higher frame rate in terms of more images, per second, because it felt kind of uncanny valley type of deal watching their mouths move. Whereas, like, if there was less detail, it wouldn't have been a problem, or if there were more frames per second, it also would have felt more natural. Whereas here, it's just at that area where it seems something's a little off.
It didn't really bother me that much.
It didn't bother me either.
I mean, obviously, I can tell that they couldn't throw that many frames of animation into it because they're obviously on a budget,
right?
And time strains.
That makes sense. I just if I personally would have looking at that, I would have said, okay, put a little less detail into the mouths then, because the mouth movements are so close to real life that not having those extra frames per second kind of seems a little off.
I'm not sure what the FPS that they did the animation in. I'm suspecting it's the same FPS that the actual show's in, but I could be wrong. I wish they would have done it with the same FPS that's used in anime. That would have been kind of awesome.
It was also a sharper definition than the actual show was in, so having the same frame rate doesn't quite work because of that.
I don't know. Technically, we're still showing stuff in the same frame rate in television that we had back in the 60s.
It's just higher definition. It's a bigger picture.
It's
I believe it's 29.9 frames per second usually.
I'm not sure about that. I think it's 24.
24.
I think 29.9 is what Japan uses.
That's also what my usual frame rate for my online show is. Apparently. According to what Adobe tells me, at least.
Let's see.
And yet people apparently complain when you don't even have 60 frames per second for a video.
TV generally uses 23.976 FPS.
So, roughly 24 frames, yeah. I have to say, one of my only nitpicks is, for this particular story, is the costumes for the Cybermen. Obviously, they were kind of pulled together. And almost kind of last minute, because they had to suit so many guys. But, at the same time, when I see someone actually doing a cosplay of that, and actually getting it pretty much right, holy smokes.
Yeah. And I have no problem with the costumes. I mean, admittedly, if this was a color show, imagine if Doctor Who was a color show, I could see that these Cybermen would not quite work, but for black and white, I think
black and white helped saved it a lot on this, but I still kind of feel that it was a little rushed in production, but I can, again, having to suit like more than 4 guys at once, I can understand.
This is more of any single monster in a costume on screen at the same time that Doctor Who had until probably
the next couple years.
Maybe the Aughtons, but I don't even know if they had.
Actually, the next Cyberman episode had any more people. Actually, not the next.
You're right. Okay, actually, yeah, you're right. So,
yeah, the next Cyberman episode had more people suited up, but I think at that point they probably had a better idea what the budget would be. Especially up until this point, this was the most. But yeah, up until this point, this is the most rubber suits they had to pull out of nowhere.
Right. Like, you wouldn't have 6 Daleks on screen at the same time at this point.
Yeah, at most you'd have maybe 3 or 4, and the rest would be like cardboard cutouts and such.
Or you'd have a dozen toys, and it would probably be pretty obvious.
And they'd be part of a miniature, and they get flooded out or something.
Okay, actually, I was wrong. The 23.976 is the standard frame rate for animation. 29 is the standard for live video.
Ah. So I'm closer to TV then.
And I forget, there's a difference in frame rate between U.S. cartoons and Japanese cartoons, and I can't remember what it is.
I think it's about a half a frame to a frame, because Japanese tend to blend 2 frames together to make up that 3rd frame. So it's somewhere around a frame or 2 smaller than a normal American cartoon. They tend to do frame blending to hide that fact, though.
Or you get from NTSC to PAL and back and forth?
No, the difference between NTSC and PAL is 1 frame per second.
I'm seeing it as 30 versus 25. So
yes.
Yeah.
But we're talking on animation.
Mm-hmm.
It's 24 versus
animation
25.
is a totally different beast than regular frame rates.
And it's actually and standard NTSC television these days is done in what's called 60i. That's the original Farnsworth NTSC since 1941. And like I said, that's 29.97 FPS, down from the original 30 frames that it was back in black and white days.
Mm.
And yeah, apparently PAL uses what's called 50i as opposed to 60i.
Ah.
I means interlaced, by the way.
Gotcha. And as I'm re-looking over some of the animated issues, I think it might just be that realistic human mouths look really different from standard animated ones, and that difference might be what's throwing me off.
Maybe.
Like just watching them speak, it just, for whatever reason.
Well, the fact that the rest of the art style is fairly anime derivative. I mean, slightly larger eyes. I mean, it's not the whole big eyes,
Not
but
the massive eyes, but they are slightly larger than what they normally would have been.
And that makes them more expressive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some other anime-style techniques used in the art. You almost expect the mouths to be mouth lines.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're not, they're actually detailed because they're going off the film stills,
right,
is probably throwing you off.
Yeah. Like the ones where there's no close-ups of a face, it just looks perfect to me. But when you get a close-up on a face speaking, that's where it throws me off.
Well, after this podcast, if my girlfriend so desires it, I may show her that animated episode and see what she thinks. If you don't know, she did graduate with an art major.
See, I didn't finish my art schooling, but I did spend about roughly 4 years in it. I originally started off in animation, and I went halfway through back over to graphic design. During that time, I did learn a lot about animation, as well as programs such as Adobe.
But yeah, I personally found the animation to be very good looking, and I'm really looking forward to the Moonbase. I want to take a look at, what was it, Reign of Terror they've also done?
Yes, they also are doing Reign of Terror.
Done, Reign of Terror. That was released in February of last year.
Oh.
That was a Big Finish Planet 55 co-production. 10th Planet is their next release. The Underwater Menace is to be announced, and the Moon Base is
February 11th.
well,
for
we
us.
meant yep, yes.
So, we have anything else to mention on this episode or this particular story?
We're about at time anyway here, so we should probably give it our rating and go.
Just one final thought, since this hasn't really come up, and it's very easy to find yourself looking at this from a historical point of view, the first Cybermen episode and the first Regeneration, whereas as a viewer in 1966, this was neither of those things. This was a creepy as hell Cyberman invasion and the death of the only Doctor you've ever seen.
Yeah, this would have
we don't
been
really have time to go
shocking
into
as
great
all
detail
hell
on
back
that,
then.
but just think about that when especially if you're watching it for the first time, and it's an entirely different experience than any other episode almost, except for maybe an Unearthly Child.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure in '66 this was a shell shock of a story to
yeah.
everyone involved.
They had no idea how it was going to go over. They were absolutely, this is either going to work,
or this is going to completely blow.
Yeah, or it'll completely ruin the series. But then they pushed it off and pushed it off and pushed it off. But they knew it had to be done because Hartnell couldn't last much longer.
And Hartnell apparently, as far as we know, there's rumors otherwise, but Hartnell apparently was the one to finally say, yeah, I gotta go.
He didn't like it, but he knew it had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, it was a big change, and it was a big up in the air. They didn't know, and I would say if it hadn't been for the ability of Patrick Troughton to act, it probably would have failed.
I also think Power of the Daleks, even though it was kind of weird looking at it from an in-universe standpoint, but it was done really ingeniously in the way that they're kind of forcing the audience to accept his character as the Doctor in order to move things along. Yep. And I think that was a contributor as well.
Because all of a sudden here comes a Dalek episode, and Daleks are the biggest thing tied to the Doctor. So, here's the big one: sink or swim. And they set Troughton out in the water. So, ratings then?
Ratings,
yep,
yes.
Final thoughts and ratings.
My final thought is that this is a must-have for anybody who collects Classic Who.
Yeah, it's definitely on my to-find list.
It is an epic ending to Hartnell. It is an epic beginning to the Cybermen. And it is a really great reconstruction of that missing episode. The only people that wouldn't want to collect it are those of you that are holding out and praying to God that fourth episode actually resurfaces.
Good luck.
But, yeah. For those of you that don't want to hold your breath until you pass out.
And even those people, I'd say, I mean, I liked this serial when the fourth episode was a reconstruction from stills. So this animation is pretty much the next best thing to actually finding that episode. It's more complete than ever before, and despite having some nitpicks, it's still really good. It's still really good reconstruction.
Perhaps for Bill, too good a reconstruction. Since talking apparently weirds him out in that one.
Bill gets weirded out by the strangest things. Talking, plot implied nudity.
More the bad touch than anything else, and the lack of body language.
Actually, I believe by that scene, Clara had gone back in the TARDIS and had clothes, so it's no longer as bad as you
No,
thought
when they went down the
part,
planet in the snowstorm and were grabbed by the Weeping Angel, they were nude.
Mm.
Yeah, they're still nude at that point.
Oh, I think you were the one who brought up the idea that the Doctor might have spent the following 300 years on the nude.
He goes there and he doesn't leave, and he didn't have the TARDIS for 300 years. So unless somebody hand-tailored him his same outfit...
Which I hope they did.
It was a friendly town named after a holiday about gift-giving. I'd like to think they did.
Here, this might actually be warmer than a hologram.
Merry Christmas, Doctor. Here's some clothing.
Since your hologram keeps flickering on and off.
Especially since the hologram was only tailored so that Clara could see it. Meaning that all of them saw all of his glory.
Yeah, everyone in that town should have seen both of those characters as naked.
I think Clara's hologram was a bit more all-inclusive.
We don't know that for sure.
That was the impression she had, anyway. But that's not to say that it was right.
I could just see Matt Smith pointing over and going, "She has no clue." Okay, anyway, yeah, rating.
And what did you give it, Randy?
I hadn't given it yet. I hadn't given a rating. I just was trying to get us back on that subject. You just want to do last comments.
Yeah. Well, as a fanboy of Cybermen, I can still forgive this for being old and the budget being not what it should have been. For the costumes, at least. So, I'd give it a fair shake of at least a 4. This was still a pretty darn good episode. And for the 4 episodes that we got, it did run together pretty seamlessly.
You know, I actually have to give it a little higher than that. I have to give it a 4.5. The writing in it, other than the little, plot of a energy drain look and that kind of thing, which again is forgivable because it's the 60s. The plot itself was very well paced. It was very well dialogued. The acting when it was on was very snappy. When Hartnell was on, he was great. Him almost kind of mocking at the Cybermen at times was just kind of beautiful. And it is, an epic ending and an epic beginning, as I said. I would say 4.5.
I'm going to completely agree with that. This is, I don't know if I'm viewing this through grading it on a curve due to the age, or if it's just is that good, but I can't help but really like this story. There are the nitpicks I mentioned, and I did, do a bit of the devil's advocate thing because someone had to mention them, but they do keep it from being a 5, but I don't see them as bringing it any lower. I consider this a 4 out of 5 and a really good episode, especially for its time.
So that's a 4.25. I think. Close to it.
More than that, because we have it's 13 divided by 3. So there'll be a 4.3 repeating then.
4.3.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, did you give it a 4.5, Bill?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I thought you just said 4.
No, I said same as Randy. He had the 4.5, so did I.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
So 4.3.
Yeah, I was a bit confused with Matt there because I heard you say 4 at the end, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I heard 4 at the end too. And I'm like, huh?
Oh, I might have said kept it from being a 4 when I meant to say kept it from being a 5.
No, you said kept it from being a 5.
No, you said you were giving it a 4.
Yeah, at the very end. You just got us confused.
You got us confused because you said 4 without adding the half.
I must have used the word FOR and it didn't sound, and it came across wrong. That's the only thing I can think of because I hadn't actually given a number other than saying.
No, you were saying a number.
So, it's fine. It's fine.
We'll
we'll take the 4.5.
Yep.
And we'll take the 4.3. So Matt, you're giving it the low score of the group.
Yeah, cloth masks do not make it for me. They really don't.
And
I have to say that if they would have given them the right amount of money, they could have avoided that.
So basically, you're saying if they had the if they
had the foresight to prepare slightly better improved costumes with the right amount of money, they could have given me at least a 4.5.
If they had the moon-based costume in this episode, it would have been higher. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that if they would have improved the costume, yeah, they probably would have gone up to a 4.5 at least. If they were really good costumes, that probably would have shot to 5.
Cyber voice.
And the voice, yeah. The voice also didn't help.
I love the voice on this.
I love the voice. I'm sorry, Matt. You're by yourself there.
It's so
I know I'm by myself on YouTube, but I guarantee you there are other people who would agree with me.
There are people that agree with you, definitely, but like there is nothing on television or film that I can say sounds like this.
Yeah,
there's a reason
that's what really draws me into it.
There is. This was something I was going to bring up, in the fact that that off-kilter way of speaking for use by a computer program is still alive today. It's basically the same way of speech used by GLaDOS in the Portal series.
Oh, that's right. You had kind of mentioned that.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and the post-processing on the voice is different, but it's that same kind of asynchronous way of talking.
Mm-hmm. And this
stressing
is
syllables.
Mourned.
This is also completely, before autotune, before ring modulators. This is all done by mouth, essentially.
Yeah, there was a little bit of post-production on the voice. They used some kind of echo track on it to make it sound like it was either that or they were just talking over a speaker to make it sound false.
Right.
Which is probably what they did do. Budget,
because it does sound a little bit a fake.
Mm-hmm.
By fake I mean not
echoes
coming from
more than a human mouth would.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it is just a guy doing.
Yeah, depending on how the studio was, it could even have just been a guy off screen talking, and the way that the echo in the studio was might have done all that. We don't know.
No, it sounded like some form of reproduction. I couldn't tell. It sounded like it was coming through a microphone.
I don't know if anyone's ever actually really covered how they did that voice.
No,
but anyway,
I don't know. I know they managed to reproduce it for the Big Finish audio spare parts, but other than that, I don't know.
Modern day version of it, though, too. So
yeah.
Anywho, I think we're about done, so I think it's time to end the stream.
Okay, yep. Come back next week when we will be covering the final episode of Patrick Troughton, The War Games.
And that's going to take significantly longer to rewatch.
Yes, I will remind my fellow podcasters to watch this one ahead of time, because it is one of the longer serials.
This is not one that you can turn on and dream about it too. Eastern time, anyway.
Alrighty.
All right. See you guys next week.